When you finally feel worthy, that's the moment you stop waiting and start living for real. Most people don't know what to do with that feeling worthy. They've spent years thinking they're not good enough, always trying to earn love, respect, or peace. So when that feeling finally hits, when something inside says, maybe I am enough, they don't know how to live from it. That's what this is about. This isn't another talk filled with nice words and big promises. This is for people who are done pretending. You'll learn how to stop holding back your voice, how to protect your peace without guilt, and how to choose what's right for you without needing approval. You've waited long enough. You've been silent long enough. This is the guide for the version of you that's ready to live with truth and stop asking for permission. You feel worthy now? Good. That means it's time to act like it, and this will show you how. Chapter 1. Stand up for your needs without feeling selfish. That's where it begins. That's where real self-love starts. Not with a quote, not with a journal entry, not with someone else approving of you. It begins when you look at your life and decide that your needs matter. Not more than others, not less than others, just enough, equal and fair. Most people grow up learning how to please others. They're taught that being good means sacrificing their needs, their peace, their energy, even their identity, to keep others comfortable. So, naturally, when you finally decide to take care of yourself, when you finally say, "This isn't working for me," guilt creeps in. That guilt isn't real, it's learned. And if you can learn to feel guilty for putting yourself last, you can also learn how to live without that guilt when you choose to put yourself first. The truth is, there's nothing selfish about knowing what you need. In fact, it's one of the most responsible and mature things you can ever do. Because when you ignore your needs, everything else starts to break. Your focus, your energy, your health, your ability to love others from a full heart. You can't give what you don't have, and you can't stay strong for others when you're falling apart inside. Standing up for your needs means saying no when something feels wrong, even if it disappoints someone. It means walking away from conversations that drain you, even if they don't make a scene. It means choosing time alone when your body needs rest, even when everyone else wants your attention. It means asking for respect without begging. It means valuing your time like it matters. And it means doing all of this without second-guessing your worth. There will be people who don't like it. That's expected. If you've always put others ahead of you, the moment you stop doing that, they'll notice, they'll question it, they'll try to guilt you back into that role. But here's something you need to remember. Other people's comfort is not your purpose. Their happiness isn't your full-time job. You can still care, you can still love, but not at the cost of your well-being. Too many people confuse kindness with compliance. They think standing up for yourself means you're difficult or hard to deal with. No, it means you've learned the value of your peace, and once you learn that, you stop trading it for temporary approval. The people who genuinely care about you will respect your boundaries. They'll appreciate your honesty. They'll adjust. And those who don't, well, maybe they were only around because you were convenient. That's hard to hear, but it's honest. And sometimes honest is what saves you. When you begin to prioritize your needs, everything in your life changes. You begin to walk straighter. You stop explaining every little choice. You stop feeling like you owe people something just for being you. You become grounded. You speak differently. You breathe easier. You begin to trust your voice. That quiet voice inside you that tells you something isn't right or something doesn't feel good. Most people ignore that voice. They override it. They silence it. But not you. Not anymore. Because you understand now, that voice is your compass. It keeps you on your path. Don't wait for others to validate your decisions. If you need to rest, rest. If you need to step back, step back. If you need to say no, say it. No explanation, no apology, no long story. You don't owe anyone an excuse for choosing your mental and emotional health. Sometimes the hardest part is not knowing what your needs actually are. Because if you've been disconnected from yourself long enough, your own needs can feel like a mystery. That's okay. Take the time to ask yourself real questions. What makes you feel peaceful? What drains your energy? What do you crave when you're overwhelmed? What kind of environment helps you think clearly? What kind of people make you feel respected? When you ask the right questions, the answers always come. Slowly at first, but they come. And every answer brings you one step closer to living a life that actually fits you. There's a big difference between reacting and responding. When you live in a way that ignores your needs, you start reacting to life. Everything feels urgent. Every request feels like pressure. Every yes feels like a heavy weight. But when you know your needs and you honor them, you begin to respond with clarity, with patience, with strength, and that changes everything. You were not born to constantly adjust yourself for people who never adjust for you. That is not love, that is fear. And fear cannot be the foundation for any real relationship. Not with others, and not with yourself. You were born to live with confidence in your decisions, with trust in your instincts, with peace in your heart. And none of that happens if you keep betraying yourself to avoid being judged. You'll find that once you start standing up for your needs, life starts reflecting that strength back to you. You'll meet people who support your growth. You'll be given opportunities that align with your values. You'll walk into rooms with a quiet power that doesn't need to shout to be seen. You'll stop being exhausted from doing too much for people who do too little in return. There's nothing selfish about making yourself a priority. You only get one life, one body, one mind, and it is your responsibility to take care of it, not your partner's, not your boss's, not your friends', yours. Because if you don't do it, no one else will. And don't confuse this with being rigid. Standing up for your needs doesn't mean you become cold. It doesn't mean you stop giving. It means you give from strength, not from sacrifice. It means you live from truth, not from guilt. It means you show up whole, not broken. You deserve to wake up and feel like your life belongs to you, not controlled by someone else, not shaped by what people think you should do, but lived by your values, your energy, your voice, your needs. So today, make one small choice that honors your needs. Say no to something that doesn't serve you. Say yes to something you've been putting off for yourself. Take a break without guilt. Speak your truth without shrinking. Take the little things without shrink. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment. There's no perfect moment. There's just right now. And right now is enough. Every time you stand up for yourself, you send a message to your mind that you matter, that you're worth showing up for. And over time, that message becomes your truth. You don't have to do it all at once. Start with one decision, then another, then another. Soon it becomes who you are. Someone who doesn't explain their worth. Someone who doesn't apologize for taking up space. Someone who knows that loving yourself starts by choosing yourself. And remember, there's nothing selfish about that. It's strength. It's maturity. It's clarity. It's love. And love, real love, always starts with how you treat yourself when nobody's watching, when you feel worthy enough to stand your ground, when you know you belong here, not because someone said so, but because you finally believe it yourself. Chapter 2. Give yourself credit even if no one else does. Most people go through life waiting for someone to notice them. They do the right thing, they show up, they stay strong through hard times, but they don't feel seen. And when no one says, "I'm proud of you," they start to believe they haven't done enough. But here's what I want you to understand. If you're waiting for the world to give you permission to feel good about yourself, you'll be waiting forever. You can't build your worth on someone else's words. You have to give yourself credit, even if no one else does. Giving yourself credit isn't arrogance, it's not ego. It's not about pretending you're better than anyone. It's about recognizing your effort, your growth, your discipline, your quiet courage. It's about knowing what it took for you to keep going when you could have given up. It's about honoring your own progress, even when nobody claps for it. You know what you've been through. You know the nights you didn't sleep, the days you felt like quitting, the moments you kept showing up even when your heart was heavy. You know how hard it was to stay patient when things weren't working. You know how much energy it took to keep your head up when everything around you was trying to pull you down. No one else lived those moments. No one else felt those silent battles. So no one else is more qualified than you to say, "I'm proud of myself." There are people who will only notice you when you fail. They'll stay quiet when you succeed. They'll act like your effort was expected. They'll dismiss your progress like it's nothing. That's why you can't depend on their words. That's why you can't wait for validation. That's why you must learn to validate yourself. It starts with awareness. Most people are in such a rush to get somewhere that they don't stop to notice how far they've come. They look at everything that's still missing, everything that still needs fixing, and they miss all the growth that's already happened. They forget the person they used to be. They overlook the habits they've broken, the decisions they've improved, the boundaries they've created, the pain they've healed from. Take a moment to think about your last 6 months. Look at the things you've pushed through, the habits you've changed, the situations you've handled better than before, the lessons you've learned. If that's not progress, what is? You don't need a round of applause. You don't need a big celebration. But you do need honesty. You need to be able to look at yourself and say, "I'm not where I want to be yet, but I've grown, I've changed, I'm improving, I'm trying." That's not weakness, that's strength. That's the beginning of self-respect. And once you stop giving yourself credit, everything starts to shift. You stop feeling like a failure every time something goes wrong. You stop measuring your life by someone else's praise. You start finding motivation from inside. You begin to believe that your work matters, even if nobody says it out loud. People often confuse humility with hiding. They think they're being humble by not acknowledging their progress. But real humility is knowing you've done something right without needing to shout it. You don't need to post it. You don't need to prove it. You just know it, deep down. And that quiet knowing becomes the fuel that keeps you moving forward. Give yourself credit for the hard choices you've made, for the discipline you've shown, for the way you've handled disappointment without falling apart. Give yourself credit for keeping your character intact when you could have taken the easy way out, for staying true to your values when nobody was watching. That kind of strength deserves recognition, even if it only comes from you. You don't have to wait until you're finished to feel proud. You can feel proud in the middle. You can feel proud in the process. You can be proud of yourself for showing up, tired, unsure, stressed, and still doing your best. Some people won't understand your journey. That's okay. You didn't start this path for their approval. You started because you knew you deserved a better life, because something inside you knew you were capable of more. Don't lose that. Don't let the silence around you make you forget the effort within you. You're not weak because you want to be seen. That's human. We all want to feel appreciated. But don't let the lack of recognition take away your motivation. Don't let it convince you that your effort doesn't matter. Your value isn't based on how loud others cheer. It's based on how deeply you show up for yourself. When you accomplish something, acknowledge it. When you improve a habit, celebrate it. When you speak up for yourself, recognize that growth. When you say no to something that used to control you, honor that decision, because every step you take in the right direction is a step away from the person you used to be, and that matters. You won't always get the support you expect. Sometimes the people closest to you will overlook your growth, not because they don't care, but because they don't see the effort behind it. They only see the result, and if the result isn't dramatic or life-changing, they'll miss it. That's why you must be your own witness. You must be the one who says, I see what I've done. I see how I've changed. I know how far I've come. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being real. You're still learning. You're still evolving. But you're moving forward. That's what counts. Don't brush off your wins. Don't downplay your progress. Stop saying, it's not a big deal. It is. Every positive step you take is a big deal. Every act of discipline, every moment of emotional control, every time you rise above your past behavior. That's what growth looks like. And growth deserves to be seen, even if only by you. Start keeping promises to yourself. Start noticing when you follow through. Start writing down your small wins at the end of each day, not for likes, not for views, but for your own mind, to remind yourself that you're not stuck, you're not lazy, you're not failing, you're improving, slowly, daily, quietly. And one day you'll look back and realize you didn't need anyone to tell you you're doing well. You already knew. You felt it. You lived it. That's the kind of strength that can't be taken away, because it was built from the inside out. You didn't wait for permission. You didn't wait for a handout. You gave yourself the credit. And that's why you kept going. That's why you became unshakable. Because you finally stopped needing the world to see you once you started seeing yourself.
Chapter 3. Stop chasing love from people who overlook you. When you chase love from people who don't see you, you lose parts of yourself one piece at a time. You begin to adjust how you talk. You shrink your needs. You try harder. You wait longer. You excuse things that hurt. And somewhere along the way, you stop feeling like yourself. You start surviving in hopes that someone will finally look at you and say, you're enough. But here's the truth. If someone overlooks your value, you don't need to prove it. You need to protect it. There are people who will only care when it's convenient. They'll show up when they want something. They'll disappear when you need support. They'll give you just enough attention to keep you hoping, but never enough to make you feel secure. You deserve more than that. You deserve consistency. You deserve presence. You deserve someone who notices your effort without you begging to be noticed. Love should never be a battle for attention. It should never feel like you're convincing someone that you matter. When you find yourself constantly explaining your feelings, questioning where you stand, or lowering your standards just to keep someone around, that's not love. That's emotional survival. And emotional survival isn't a foundation for anything healthy. Sometimes you chase people because deep down you believe their love will fix something inside you. That if they finally see your worth, then maybe you can believe it too. But that mindset only traps you. Because the more you chase them, the more you disconnect from yourself. You ignore your intuition. You silence your disappointment. You abandon the parts of you that know something feels wrong. You don't need someone who looks past you. You need someone who looks at you and actually sees you, who listens when you speak, who respects your emotions, who doesn't make you feel like love is something you have to earn. You can't build a healthy connection with someone who doesn't make space for your heart. There's nothing noble about staying where you're not seen. There's no reward for waiting around in silence, hoping someone wakes up and appreciates you. If someone overlooks what you bring, that's their limitation. That's their blindness. It's not your failure. You are not unworthy just because someone refuses to value you. Stop trying to change yourself to match someone's preferences. The right connection doesn't require you to hide your personality. It doesn't make you feel like you're too much or not enough. The right people never make you doubt your importance in their life. They make you feel safe, grounded, seen. And here's something hard to accept. Sometimes the people you want the most are the exact ones you need to let go of. Not because you didn't care, not because you didn't try, but because they simply weren't willing or capable of showing up the way you deserve. And if you hold on to what hurts, you miss the chance to experience what heals. You weren't put on this earth to convince someone to love you. You weren't meant to spend your energy proving your worth to someone who's already made up their mind. If they overlook your kindness, your effort, your presence, that's on them. You don't have to stay where love is one-sided. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with your dignity intact. Not because you're bitter, but because you finally understand that love should feel safe. It should feel steady. It should feel mutual. And if it doesn't, it's not for you. There are people who will understand your heart without needing an explanation. People who won't make you question your place in their life. People who show up on the hard days, not just the good ones. But you'll never meet them if you keep chasing the ones who never valued your presence. And you don't need to hate anyone to let them go. You can forgive them. You can wish them well, and still make the choice to step away. Because you've finally realized that your peace matters more than being liked. Your emotional safety matters more than false hope. Your future matters more than staying stuck. Chasing love changes you. It makes you tired. It chips away at your confidence. It turns your needs into problems. And after a while you forget who you were before the chase began. You forget what it feels like to be relaxed, secure, whole, and the longer you stay in that cycle, the more you disconnect from your own strength. You're allowed to want love. You're allowed to need connection. But not at the cost of your self-worth. Not at the cost of your clarity. And never at the cost of your peace. There's real strength in choosing yourself. In saying, if you can't see me now, you won't have me later. That's not pride. That's knowing your value. That's knowing your time is worth more than uncertainty. That your heart is worth more than silence. You don't need to chase someone who makes you feel invisible. You need to invest in yourself. Heal what made you think that kind of love was acceptable. Sit with the discomfort of being alone if you have to, but don't settle for crumbs when you deserve a full connection. Start paying attention to how you feel around people. Do you feel calm? Do you feel respected? Do you feel heard? If the answer is no, then that's the only sign you need. You don't need a long explanation. You don't need closure from someone who didn't value you. The clarity is already there in the way you feel when you're around them. Build a life where love feels like support, not pressure, where your voice is heard, not ignored, where your needs are met, not dismissed, where you don't have to beg for someone to make time for you. And until that kind of love shows up, focus on becoming someone who no longer begs to be chosen. Become someone who chooses themselves, who walks in truth, who stands in confidence, who knows their value without needing permission. You are not hard to love. You are just trying to get it from the wrong people. People who aren't ready, people who aren't willing, people who aren't aligned. And that's okay. That doesn't make you unlovable. It just means you haven't found the right place to give your heart. The love you deserve won't make you question yourself. It won't leave you anxious. It won't disappear when things get serious. It will stay. It will grow. It will meet you where you are. But you can't experience that love if you're still stuck chasing the wrong kind. So stop running after people who treat you like a backup plan. Stop showing up where your presence goes unnoticed. Stop explaining yourself to those who don't want to understand you. You're not here to be tolerated. You're here to be loved fully. The moment you stop chasing what doesn't see you is the moment you start making space for something better, something honest, something healthy. Something that doesn't require a chase, just a quiet trust that you're already enough. And you've always been enough.
Chapter 4. Do things that remind you you're enough today. There's something powerful about doing small things that remind you you're already enough right now. Not someday, not when you get the perfect job, not when you finally lose the weight, not when someone chooses you. But today, in this moment, as you are. The world constantly tries to convince you that you're not there yet, that you're behind, that something is missing, that you need more, before you can feel proud of yourself. But you don't need to keep living like you're not already worthy of respect and care. You don't have to earn permission to feel good about who you are. You don't need someone else to give you a reason. You can decide for yourself. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It starts with how you talk to yourself when you wake up, before the world gives you a reason to feel behind, before the pressure kicks in. What do you say to yourself? Do you rush to your phone? Do you scroll through other people's lives? Or do you take a few quiet minutes to check in with your own? Most people live their entire day trying to fix themselves, trying to improve, trying to reach the next level. But they forget to pause and ask, what have I already done that matters? It could be something simple. You got out of bed when it was easier to stay in. You made time for something important to you. You were patient when it was hard. You kept your cool in a stressful moment. You said no when it would have been easier to say yes. That's real progress. That's proof of strength. That's enough for today. You have to stop waiting for big achievements to validate your value. There are small, quiet wins every single day that go unnoticed. And if you don't start noticing them, you'll always feel like you're not doing enough. That feeling becomes a mindset. And that mindset turns into a habit. Before long, you're moving through life with a constant pressure on your shoulders, even on the days when you've done more than enough. You have to make space in your routine for moments that remind you of your worth. Maybe it's taking a walk without your phone. Maybe it's spending 10 minutes journaling about something you've handled well. Maybe it's preparing a meal that nourishes your body. Maybe it's listening to music that reminds you who you are. These aren't luxuries. These are anchors. These are ways you tell yourself, I'm worth this time. I'm worth this care. When you start giving yourself daily reminders that you're enough,
You stop attaching your identity to performance. You stop needing constant achievement to feel okay. You stop living for approval, and instead you start building a solid relationship with yourself. One that says, even if nothing changes today, I'm still valuable. I still matter. I'm still whole. That doesn't mean you stop trying to grow. It means your growth comes from a place of self-respect, not self-judgment. When you operate from self-judgment, everything you do feels like a desperate attempt to feel better about yourself. But when you move from self-respect, everything you do becomes an expression of your worth, not a condition for it. And there will be days when you don't feel strong. Days when the doubt creeps in. Days when your energy is low, and your mind starts looking for reasons to feel ashamed or behind. That's when it matters most, to do something grounding, something that brings you back, something that says, I'm doing the best I can today, and that counts. You don't need to run from your feelings to prove you're enough. You can feel tired, you can feel frustrated, you can feel unsure, and still be enough. Your emotions don't erase your value. They just remind you that you're human. And being human is not a flaw. It's what connects you to every other person on this planet. It's easy to forget this when you spend too much time comparing your life to others. You see their highlights. You see their confidence. You see their wins. And you start questioning your own story. But you have no idea what they had to go through to get there. And you don't need to match their life to respect your own. You're not behind. You're not too late. You're right where you need to be to start giving yourself more credit. And the more you do this, the more natural it feels. You start seeing your own efforts without needing someone to point them out. You stop needing every day to be productive just to feel valuable. You realize that rest is productive too. That slowing down can be powerful. That taking care of your mental health isn't a distraction. It's essential. You might not be where you want to be yet, but that doesn't mean who you are now isn't enough. You're in the middle of becoming. But that doesn't mean you have to withhold love and acceptance from yourself until you reach some imaginary finish line. You can be a work in progress and still be proud. And sometimes being enough means choosing people and environments that don't make you doubt yourself. It means walking away from anything that constantly makes you feel like you're failing. You can't grow in places that keep you questioning your own value. You can't heal around people who don't know how to respect your heart. So ask yourself every day, what can I do right now that reminds me I'm worthy? It could be choosing a healthy habit. It could be deleting a conversation that always makes you feel bad. It could be saying yes to a plan that makes you feel alive. Or saying no to a plan that you only agreed to out of guilt. When you do these things, you're not just building confidence. You're training your mind to stop looking for validation in all the wrong places. You're learning to come back to yourself. You're learning to trust your own voice. That's where real power begins. You don't need a perfect day to feel proud of yourself. You just need a few honest choices. You need moments that bring you back to your values. Actions that say, I matter today, not just when I'm successful, not just when others notice, but now. This mindset isn't a one-time decision. It's something you practice, and the more you practice it, the stronger it gets. The more grounded you become, the more peace you feel, not because life is easier, but because you've stopped making your value something that has to be proven. You already are enough. The work now is to start living like it. Not someday, but today, in the way you speak to yourself, in the way you move through your day, in the way you make choices that reflect who you are and who you're becoming. And when you forget, which you will sometimes, You don't need to panic. You just need to come back. Come back to the small actions. Come back to the present. Come back to the truth. That even in your most uncertain moments, you are still worthy of your own love, your own care, and your own respect. Chapter 5. Say how you really feel without fear or shame. Most people never say how they truly feel. They smile when they're hurting. They stay quiet when something feels wrong. They hold in thoughts they should have expressed years ago, and slowly that silence begins to weigh them down. Not because they're weak, but because they've been taught that speaking honestly will cost them something: love, respect, connection. So they carry their pain in silence, hoping it will pass, hoping someone will just understand them without needing to be told. But here's what they don't realize: every time you bury your feelings, you bury a piece of yourself, and you can't feel free if you're hiding the truth. Saying how you really feel is not a weakness. It's not a problem. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's the beginning of clarity. It's what gives you your voice back. It's how you build real trust with yourself and with others. But to get there, you have to stop filtering everything to make others comfortable. You have to stop shrinking your truth to avoid conflict. You have to believe that your emotions deserve to be seen and heard, not ignored, not dismissed, not shoved away. There are people who will tell you you're too sensitive when you speak honestly. That's not a reflection of you. That's a sign they don't know how to deal with emotional honesty. Some people are only comfortable around you when you pretend everything's okay. But your job in this life isn't to protect other people's comfort at the cost of your truth. Your job is to honor what you feel, to trust what's real for you, to speak it, not out of anger, but out of honesty. Real emotional strength isn't pretending to be fine. It's having the courage to say, "This is what I feel," even if it's uncomfortable to say it out loud. You don't need to scream. You don't need to blame. You don't need to make it dramatic. You just need to be honest, direct, clear. Honest doesn't mean aggressive. It means not hiding. It means saying, "This hurt me," or "I don't agree with this," or "I need more from this relationship," or "I'm afraid right now." We've all been conditioned to avoid discomfort. We're told not to make things complicated, to keep the peace, to stay polite. But sometimes peace on the outside means chaos on the inside, and no amount of politeness is worth your mental health. Silence might avoid an argument, but it builds resentment. It creates emotional distance, and over time you stop recognizing yourself. You don't have to share everything with everyone, but you do need to stop hiding your truth from the people who matter. Because love without honesty is fragile. It breaks under pressure. It turns into guessing games, into confusion, into quiet suffering. And none of that leads to connection. None of that brings peace. You might have grown up in an environment where feelings weren't talked about, where speaking up meant punishment, where expressing emotion was seen as weakness. And maybe now you still carry that belief. Maybe now, when your heart wants to say something, your mind tells you to stay quiet. But you're not in that place anymore. You're not a child being punished for honesty. You're an adult who deserves to live with clarity and peace of mind. And that starts when you stop silencing yourself. It's okay to admit that something hurt you. It's okay to say that you're tired, that you need space, that you're overwhelmed. You don't have to justify your feelings. You don't need a perfect reason to feel what you feel. You just need to trust that if something feels real to you, it's valid. That doesn't mean you're always right, but it does mean your emotions are worth being explored and understood, not pushed down and ignored. When you don't speak honestly, you disconnect from your own needs. You say yes when you want to say no. You agree just to avoid conflict. You act fine when you're struggling inside. And the more you do that, the more distant you become from your true self. You wake up one day and realize you're not living your life. You're performing someone else's version of it. You can't build meaningful relationships on silence. You can't expect people to understand what you never say. People can't read your mind. They don't know what you need unless you express it. And when you do speak up, it's not about being dramatic. It's about being honest enough to protect your peace. If someone really cares about you, they'll want to know what's real. They won't shame you for expressing it. And the more you practice speaking your truth, the more confident you become. The fear doesn't go away overnight, but each time you say what you actually mean, you send a message to yourself. My voice matters. My truth is allowed. I can trust myself to be real. That confidence builds slowly, but it stays with you. You start realizing that expressing emotion isn't something to run from. It's something to own. You become more grounded. You stop needing to pretend. You start creating a life that fits who you are, not one that's built on avoiding discomfort. It's okay if not everyone responds well. Not everyone is ready for emotional honesty. That doesn't mean you're wrong for sharing. It just means they're not the right person to hold that part of you. And that's a truth worth facing. Because once you stop hiding, you start attracting people who respect your honesty. People who don't ask you to perform. People who give you the space to feel without judgment. You are allowed to change your mind. To say something didn't sit well. To admit when something affected you more than you expected. That's not weakness. That's growth. That's you choosing to live with integrity, not fear. Shame often tells you that your feelings make you a problem. But feelings are never the problem. What creates problems is pretending those feelings don't exist. What creates problems is letting fear decide what gets to be spoken. You have the right to speak up. Not perfectly, but truthfully. The more you live this way, the lighter you feel. You don't carry the weight of unspoken words. You don't replay conversations in your head, thinking about what you should have said. You speak, you release, and you move forward. That's what real freedom feels like. Not the absence of emotion, but the ability to express it without guilt. Start small if you need to. Tell someone you need space. Tell a friend you didn't feel heard in a conversation. Tell yourself the truth about what's really bothering you. And don't wait for the perfect moment. The moment is now. Speak with calm. Speak with care. Speak with clarity. But speak, because your truth deserves air. It deserves light. It deserves a voice. And that voice, your voice, is stronger than you think. When you use it, not only do you free yourself, but you create space for others to be real too. That's how healing starts. That's how connection grows. That's how you finally begin to live with peace. Not by avoiding how you feel, but by having the courage to say it out loud. Chapter 6. Start being honest about what you truly want. Most people don't get what they truly want in life, not because it's impossible, but because they never admit it to themselves. They settle for what's safe. They chase what others expect from them. They do what looks acceptable. But deep down, they carry a quiet truth, a personal truth, that they push aside, and that silence creates frustration. Not because they're doing the wrong things, but because they're doing things that don't match who they really are. The life they're building looks fine on the outside, but it feels empty on the inside. Not because they're lazy, not because they lack discipline, but because they're avoiding the most important question of all: what do I truly want? If you never say it clearly, if you keep avoiding your own truth, you'll stay stuck. You'll stay busy. You'll stay responsible. But you'll always feel something missing. And that missing piece isn't about doing more. It's about doing what actually matters to you. Being honest with yourself takes courage. Because the moment you admit what you really want, you also admit that the life you're living might not reflect it. And that gap can be uncomfortable. You might have to admit that your job drains you, that your relationships are shallow, that you're tired of pretending to enjoy things that don't excite you. But if you keep avoiding that truth, you'll spend your whole life managing disappointment instead of changing your direction. You don't have to announce it to the world, but you owe it to yourself to say it out loud, even if just once. I want peace. I want freedom. I want a deeper connection. I want to create something meaningful. I want to feel alive again. Whatever it is, name it. Stop pushing it aside. Stop saying it's too late. Stop saying it's selfish. Because the longer you deny what matters to you, the harder it becomes to feel grounded in your own life. People are often afraid to admit what they want because they don't know how to get it. So instead of facing the fear of uncertainty, they hide behind vague goals. They say things like, "I just want to be happy," or "I want a better life." But they never sit down to define what that really means. What does better look like for you? What would make your life feel aligned? What does success actually look like on your terms, not someone else's? And here's the truth. Once you define it, everything else starts to shift. You stop wasting time on things that don't lead you there. You stop making choices out of pressure. You stop saying yes to things that don't fit you, because now you're moving with direction. Now you're walking towards something real, something you chose. There's a kind of peace that comes when you stop lying to yourself, when you stop acting like you're fine doing what drains you, when you stop pretending to want what everyone else wants. You're allowed to have a different vision. You're allowed to dream of something simpler, or bolder, or quieter, or more creative. And you don't need to explain it. You just need to live it. If you want more freedom in your day, say that. If you want to change careers, say that. If you want to live with more meaning, say that. You're not here to meet everyone's expectations. You're here to live a life that feels true. And the first step is honesty. Real, direct honesty. Not filtered, not polite. Just honest. You might be afraid of what happens after you admit it. You might think, if I say it, then I have to do something about it. But don't worry about step 10. Just start with step 1. Step 1 is to tell the truth, even if no one else hears it but you. Sometimes the truth is messy. It doesn't fit in a perfect sentence. It's complicated. That's okay. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to stop denying what your heart keeps whispering. You know what it is. You've always known. You've just learned how to quiet it to get through the day. But it's time to listen again, because that voice isn't going away. That desire you keep ignoring isn't disappearing, and it won't, because it's part of who you are. And the longer you fight it, the more unsettled you'll feel, the more your days will feel off, the more you'll wonder why you're not fulfilled, even though you're doing everything right. You weren't made to follow someone else's script. You weren't built to perform your life like a role. You were born to live in alignment with what actually matters to you. That means you'll have to disappoint some people. That means you'll have to make different choices. That means you'll have to stop explaining your path. And that's part of growing up, not just in age, but in self-respect. When you become honest about what you truly want, you also begin to understand what you don't need anymore. You don't need fake smiles. You don't need approval from people who don't know your journey. You don't need distractions to avoid your thoughts. You need clarity. You need direction. You need space to breathe and build something meaningful. And the people who love you really love you. They will want you to be true to yourself. They might not always understand your choices, but they will respect your courage. And those who don't, you'll outgrow them. And that's okay too. This process is not about control. It's not about forcing your life into a straight line. It's about honesty. It's about waking up and being able to say, this is what I'm working toward, and it matters to me. That's where energy comes from. That's what brings your motivation back. Not pressure, not shame, but purpose. So take time today. Turn off the noise. Get quiet. Ask yourself, what do I actually want? What have I been too afraid to admit? What dreams have I buried under logic, fear, or pressure? And when those answers come, don't judge them. Don't shut them down. Just listen. Because in those answers is the life you were meant to live. You don't need to fix everything overnight. You just need to stop hiding from your truth. And once you stop hiding, you'll be surprised how strong you really are. You'll be surprised how many doors start opening. Not because the world changed, but because you finally did. You finally gave yourself permission to be real. And real is where everything good begins. Real effort, real peace, real change, real success, real love. It all starts the moment you stop pretending and start living from truth. Not later, not someday, but now, with your own voice, your own choices, your own clarity. That's how you build a life that feels like yours. Not perfect, not always easy, but honest. And honest is enough. Honest is powerful. Honest is the beginning of everything you've been searching for. Chapter 7. Walk away from anything that lowers your peace. You don't owe your peace to anyone or anything that keeps disturbing it, and the sooner you understand that, the stronger you become. Most people spend their entire lives adjusting to stress, normalizing chaos, and staying committed to what slowly wears them down. They stay because it's familiar. They stay because they think walking away makes them weak. But there's nothing weak about protecting your mental clarity. There's nothing selfish about choosing peace over pressure. And there's no reward for staying in situations that constantly make you feel drained, anxious, or small. Peace doesn't just show up. You have to create it. You have to defend it. And sometimes that means stepping away from people, habits, routines, and conversations that no longer serve you. That's hard to do if you've been taught to put everyone else first. It's hard to do if you've been told that walking away means giving up. But holding on to things that constantly lower your energy is not strength. That's survival. And you weren't made to survive your whole life. You were made to live it. Every day you make choices. Who you talk to, what you tolerate, where you spend your energy. Those decisions shape your mindset. They shape your emotional state. And if you keep choosing situations that pull you away from peace, you'll forget what calm even feels like. You'll forget what it means to wake up and feel light inside. You'll mistake constant tension for normal. You'll call discomfort growth when really it's just dysfunction. Peace isn't a luxury. It's not something you get only when life is perfect. It's a standard you set. It's something you build through the choices you make. It starts when you stop making excuses for people who bring constant stress into your life. It starts when you stop over-explaining your boundaries. It starts when you stop showing up to things that leave you feeling worse after than before. You can care about people and still walk away from them. You can be grateful for an opportunity and still leave it behind if it no longer aligns with your values. You can appreciate what something taught you and still outgrow it. Peace doesn't always come with comfort. Sometimes it shows up after you've made the hard decision, after you've said no, after you've walked away. There will be voices around you that say, "Don't be too sensitive. It's not that bad." Or "Everyone deals with this." But you don't live for everyone else. You live with yourself. You wake up in your mind every morning. You go to sleep with your thoughts every night. And if something or someone is disturbing that inner space daily, it's your job to respond. Not with anger, but with clarity. Start paying attention to how your body feels after certain interactions. Are you tense? Are you overthinking? Do you feel heavy? That's not a coincidence. That's your nervous system responding to what your mind is trying to ignore. Your body always keeps score, and if you keep tolerating what feels off, that tension becomes part of you. Your peace doesn't disappear suddenly. It fades slowly, one ignored feeling at a time. You're not being dramatic when you say something doesn't sit right with you. You're not overreacting when you feel the need to step back. You're being honest. And the more honest you are with yourself, the more free you become. Because peace doesn't come from pretending. It doesn't come from forcing things. It comes from making choices that align with who you are becoming, not who you were trying to be. Sometimes we stay in chaos because we've tied our identity to it. We've convinced ourselves that our worth comes from fixing others, from being available 24/7, from carrying everyone else's emotions. But that's not peace. That's emotional exhaustion. And no one is meant to carry that load forever. You deserve space to breathe. You deserve relationships that don't feel like emotional work. You deserve a life that doesn't feel like a constant emergency. And walking away doesn't always mean slamming doors. It can mean stepping back. It can mean saying less. It can mean not responding to drama. It can mean choosing silence instead of arguing. It can mean removing yourself gently, without guilt, because you finally realized your peace is more valuable than their comfort. You have every right to create a life that feels emotionally healthy. You're allowed to take your time. You're allowed to heal on your own terms. You're allowed to end conversations that turn into power struggles. You're allowed to leave group chats, skip events, or take distance from environments that feel toxic. That's not disrespect. That's self-respect. And when you start doing this, something changes inside you. You stop feeling the need to fix everything. You stop trying to rescue people who don't want help. You stop needing to explain your choices. You learn to stand still in your own truth. And that truth becomes a shield. It protects your energy. It guards your progress. It keeps you steady. You also stop waiting for peace to come from somewhere outside of you. You stop thinking that if other people changed, you'd finally feel better. You stop blaming the world for your emotional state. You realize that peace is something you claim. It's something you practice. It's something you fight for, not with anger, but with intention. And yes, it will take time. You won't get it perfect every day. There will be setbacks. There will be moments when old habits pull you back in. But each time you choose peace over drama, clarity over confusion, stillness over noise, you grow. You become more grounded, more focused, more in control of your life. Let go of the belief that your value comes from being everywhere, doing everything, saying yes to everyone. That belief keeps you exhausted. It keeps you chasing approval, and it keeps you far from peace. You don't need to be everything for everyone. You just need to be someone who respects their own limits. There is power in quiet. There is strength in calm. And once you taste it, once you create a day that feels balanced, you won't want to go back. You won't tolerate people who bring unnecessary tension. You won't keep explaining yourself to those who refuse to understand you. You'll stop choosing what drains you out of habit. You'll start choosing what grounds you out of love. This is not about cutting off the world. This is about building a life that works for you. One decision at a time. One boundary at a time. One peaceful moment at a time. And no, not everyone will understand. But you don't need everyone to understand. You just need to be honest with yourself. Because at the end of the day, your peace is your responsibility. You get one mind, one heart, one nervous system. Don't give it away to noise. Don't spend it all on things that keep you stressed. Don't tie your peace to chaos, and then wonder why you can't sleep. You have the power to shift things. Not overnight, but starting now. So from this day forward, if something lowers your peace, question it. If someone disrespects your space, address it. If an environment makes you feel anxious, step back from it. If a habit keeps you scattered, change it. You deserve to feel steady, not once a year, but daily. Protect your peace like it matters. Because it does. Because without it, nothing else feels right. And with it, everything becomes more clear. You think better. You move better. You live better. You are better. Not because the world changed, but because you finally did. Chapter 8. Make time for yourself like you actually matter. Most people spend more time planning their next task than taking care of themselves. They keep moving, keep working, keep showing up for others, all while pushing themselves aside. They treat their well-being like it's optional, like it can wait, like it only matters once everything else is done. But here's the truth. If you never make time for yourself, you start to disappear from your own life. You stop feeling connected to your thoughts. You stop hearing your own voice. You start existing instead of living. And eventually, your body and mind will remind you, sometimes gently, sometimes painfully, that you've been running on empty for too long. Making time for yourself isn't a reward. It's a necessity. It's not something you do when you finally have permission. It's something you do because you understand your own value. You matter. And not just when you're productive. Not just when you're helping others. You matter every day, even in the quiet moments when no one's watching. The reason so many people feel disconnected, exhausted, or resentful isn't because they're weak. It's because they've forgotten what it means to take care of themselves without guilt. They've been trained to believe that self-care is selfish, that rest is laziness, that slowing down means they're falling behind. But the opposite is true. When you slow down, you get clear. When you pause, you get stronger. When you rest, you refocus. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. If you don't schedule time for yourself, it won't happen. Life won't slow down for you. People won't stop asking for your energy. The demands won't suddenly disappear. You have to create space. You have to decide that your needs are important, that your mental clarity, your emotional health, your physical energy, those things aren't side projects. They're the foundation of everything else. Making time for yourself isn't about escape. It's about alignment. It's about checking in with how you feel, what you need, what matters most. It's not always a vacation or a spa day. Sometimes it's 10 minutes alone in silence. Sometimes it's saying no to an event you don't want to attend. Sometimes it's leaving your phone in another room so you can breathe without distraction. These choices seem small, but they create a shift. They send a message to your mind that says, I'm here, I matter. I'm not just a machine. And here's what happens when you start treating yourself like you matter. You become more present. You stop reacting to everything. You stop moving through life on autopilot. You start listening to your intuition. You start making better decisions. You stop settling for things that drain you. You create space for peace, clarity, and meaning. You don't need permission to do this. You don't need anyone else to understand it. You don't have to wait until burnout forces you to pause. You can make that choice today. To stop waiting. To stop justifying. To stop thinking that you need to earn your own care. You don't. You're already enough. And because you're enough, you're worth your own time. Think about how quickly you show up for other people, how fast you answer the call, reply to the message, adjust your schedule, fix the issue. Now ask yourself, when's the last time you showed up for you? Not in a big dramatic way. Just a moment. A quiet breath. A simple pause. A walk. A conversation with yourself. A journal entry. A meal you actually enjoyed instead of rushing through it. It's not about perfection. It's about intention. About saying, I'm going to create space in my life that's just for me, even if it's only a few minutes. Because those few minutes are yours. They belong to no one else. And in those moments, you get to come home to yourself. You get to hear your own thoughts, feel your own emotions, and decide your next step, not out of pressure, but out of presence. Most of the time, people don't realize how much they've neglected themselves until something breaks. Until they feel overwhelmed, frustrated, lost. But that spiral can be avoided if you make it a habit to check in with yourself before you collapse. If you make it a daily practice to ask, what do I need right now? And then you listen. And then you respond. This is not about becoming self-centered. This is about becoming self-connected. Because when you're connected to yourself, you're more available to others. You're more grounded in your choices. You're more patient. You're more effective. You don't lose yourself trying to manage everything. You lead from clarity instead of chaos. Making time for yourself also means making room for things that bring you joy, not just things that check a box. You're allowed to enjoy your life. You're allowed to have fun without guilt. You're allowed to slow down without explanation. You're allowed to choose peace even when the world around you is pushing you to hustle non-stop. And you don't need a perfect plan. You don't need a full day off. Just start with one thing today. Drink water and sit for 5 minutes without your phone. Go outside and take a slow walk. Write down what's on your mind. Say no to something that doesn't feel right. Give yourself an early night. Any of these things are enough. You don't have to wait for a crisis to start caring, because at the end of the day, your life is built on the choices you make repeatedly. And if those choices never include time for yourself, then slowly you disappear. Not all at once, but over time, you forget what it feels like to be rested, to feel excited, to feel alive. You become a version of yourself that gets things done, but never feels whole. And you deserve more than that. So remind yourself daily that you are not a machine. You're not here to run endlessly without fuel. You're not built to keep giving while receiving nothing. You need time, space, rest, joy, stillness, and not as a reward but as a basic part of your life. as a basic part of loving yourself. You don't have to earn your own attention. You don't have to work yourself to the ground before you're allowed to rest. You can choose today to make space. You can choose today to say, I matter enough to care for myself, no matter what else is going on. That is not weakness. That is power. And if the world doesn't clap for you doing that, it doesn't matter. Your mind will thank you. Your body will thank you. Your spirit will thank you. Because deep down it knows that you finally started showing up for real, for you. Not because you had to, but because you finally believed that you were worth it. Chapter 9. Face your insecurities instead of hiding behind them. Everyone has insecurities. That includes the most confident-looking people you know. That includes the ones who seem to have it all figured out. Insecurities are part of being human. They show up in quiet ways, in how you second-guess yourself, how you downplay your strengths, how you hold back when you want to speak, how you stay small to avoid judgment. But what keeps them alive isn't that you feel them. What keeps them alive is that you hide from them. You pretend they don't exist. You cover them up with perfectionism, with overthinking, with people-pleasing, or with silence. And over time, hiding becomes a habit. A way of moving through life that looks fine on the outside, but feels heavy inside. Facing your insecurities doesn't mean fixing everything overnight. It means having the courage to be honest about where you feel unsure. It means noticing the voice that says you're not enough and asking where it came from. It means stepping into spaces that make you uncomfortable, not to prove anything to anyone, but to show yourself that fear doesn't get to run your life. You don't grow by avoiding your fears. You grow by turning toward them and saying, I see you, but you don't get to control me anymore. You can't change what you don't face. You can't heal what you keep pretending doesn't bother you. When you hide your insecurities, they shape your choices. They influence how you talk, how you love, how you lead, how you show up. They affect your confidence, your relationships, your decisions. And the worst part is, they often grow in silence. The longer you avoid them, the more power they gain. Not because they're true, but because they've gone unchallenged. You have to stop running from the things you're afraid of feeling. You have to stop masking your uncertainty with fake strength. The real strength is in saying, yes, I feel insecure about this, but I'm not going to let that stop me. That sentence alone can shift the direction of your life, because now, instead of reacting from fear, you're responding with honesty. When you avoid your insecurities, you put energy into hiding. You create walls, you push people away, you become defensive when someone gets too close to the truth. You avoid opportunities because you're scared you'll fail. But when you face them, you free yourself. You stop playing a role. You stop editing your personality to fit in. You stop settling for less just because it feels safer. Facing your insecurities doesn't make you less likable. It makes you more relatable. People connect with your honesty, not your perfection. When you admit where you're struggling, you open the door to real connection. You stop performing and start being. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you trustworthy. That's what builds inner peace. You can start small. You don't have to confront everything all at once. Begin by noticing your patterns. Where do you hold back? Where do you play it safe? What do you avoid because you're afraid it might expose something you're not proud of? Be curious, not judgmental. Your insecurities aren't a sign of weakness. They're simply places that need understanding. They're places where your confidence hasn't caught up yet. Some of your insecurities didn't start with you. They were passed down. Maybe someone made you feel small growing up. Maybe you were judged unfairly. Maybe you were told to stay quiet. Maybe someone else's opinion became your inner voice. And now, you carry those beliefs like facts. But they're not facts. They're old echoes. You don't have to carry them anymore. You can choose new thoughts. You can create a new relationship with your self-doubt. One where it doesn't get to make your choices. One where you see it, name it, and still move forward. That's courage. Not pretending you're fearless, but being willing to act in spite of it. You don't have to wait until you feel confident to do the thing that scares you. Confidence is built by doing what you're afraid of. It's built by showing up anyway. Every time you face an insecurity head-on, it shrinks a little. You realize it wasn't as big as you thought. You realize you're more capable than you gave yourself credit for. And not every insecurity will go away completely. Some will stay with you, but they'll lose their grip. You'll stop being afraid of them. You'll stop letting them make your decisions. They'll just become part of your story, something you've outgrown, not something that defines you. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is ownership. Owning your story, owning your emotions, owning your journey. When you do that, you stop hiding. You stop trying to be who you think the world wants. And you start becoming who you really are. Fully, authentically, proudly. It's okay to say, I'm still working on this. It's okay to say, I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. That honesty creates room for growth. That honesty builds self-trust. You stop beating yourself up for not being perfect and start supporting yourself through progress. You don't need to wait for a better version of yourself to start living fully. You can do it now, as you are, with what you have. That includes your strengths, your dreams, and yes, your insecurities too. Because when you stop pretending they're not there, you start building real self-respect. You stop living in fear of being found out. You start walking in freedom, because nothing is hidden, nothing is fake, and nothing is being suppressed. People respect those who are real, not because they have it all figured out, but because they're honest about where they are. That honesty takes courage. And courage isn't loud. It's steady. It's the choice to show up even when you feel vulnerable. It's the decision to face your flaws without letting them define your worth. You're not alone in what you feel. Insecurity is a human experience, but hiding it isolates you. Facing it frees you. You don't need to prove anything to be enough. You just need to be willing to face what's been holding you back and remind yourself that you are not that fear. You are the one who's strong enough to face it. You've already survived more than you give yourself credit for. You've already handled more than most people know. So give yourself permission to stop running. Turn around. Face the part of you that feels unsure, and let it see the part of you that is ready. Ready to grow. Ready to stop pretending. Ready to start building confidence that's not based on hiding, but on truth. That's how you take your power back. Not by becoming someone else, but by owning all of who you are. Even the parts you're still working on. That's how real transformation begins. And that's how real peace is created. One honest step at a time. Chapter 10. Be who you are without asking for approval. Most people spend years shaping themselves into what others expect, hoping that if they say the right thing, look the right way, act the right part, then maybe they'll be accepted. Maybe they'll belong. Maybe they'll finally feel good enough. But what they don't realize is that the moment you start molding yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone, you begin to lose the most important part of you, your truth. You begin trading honesty for approval, and every time you do that, you give away your identity for temporary validation. Being who you are without asking for approval is not about being loud or confrontational. It's about being steady in your values. It's about living in a way that aligns with your beliefs, not someone else's standards. It's about showing up to life as yourself, without waiting for someone to say, yes, that's okay. You don't need anyone's permission to exist fully. You don't need to shrink yourself just to make others comfortable. You're not here to be liked by everyone. You're here to live with clarity and integrity. You've spent enough time overthinking your words, checking your tone, softening your truth, apologizing for being different. You've kept your ideas to yourself to avoid judgment. You've said yes when you meant no just to avoid being misunderstood. And after all that, you still didn't feel truly seen. Because the truth is, people can't see the real you if you keep hiding it. You don't need to fit into everyone's idea of what's acceptable. Trying to do that only keeps you stuck. And even when you succeed, even when people finally approve, the version they approve of isn't really you. It's the version you crafted for them. And that version takes work to maintain. It creates pressure. It becomes exhausting. But the real you, that doesn't take effort. That just takes honesty. Every time you change yourself just to be liked, you reinforce the belief that who you are is not enough. That belief doesn't disappear until you stop feeding it. You have to stop giving your power to people who don't live your life. They don't feel what you feel. They don't carry your history. They don't understand your purpose. So why should their opinions weigh more than your own truth? You are allowed to be proud of who you are. Not just the polished parts, not just the moments that look good on the surface, but the whole of you, the parts that are still growing, the decisions that don't make sense to others, the emotions that are sometimes hard to explain. All of it matters. All of it belongs. Stop waiting for the world to confirm what you already know inside. If you value honesty, live honestly. If you believe in simplicity, stop chasing what complicates your peace. If you care deeply, stop pretending to be detached just to look strong. If something matters to you, stop acting like it doesn't just to avoid judgment. You don't need to be loud to be firm. You don't need to explain your choices to people who only want to challenge them. You don't need to argue to be valid. Sometimes, being yourself means walking away from conversations that go in circles. Sometimes it means standing in silence while others question your path. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that their approval isn't your goal. Being yourself also means accepting that not everyone will agree with you. Some people will misunderstand your intentions. Some will judge your choices. Some will project their fears onto your decisions. That doesn't make you wrong. It just means you've stopped living for the crowd. It means you've started choosing self-respect over popularity. There is a calmness that comes with no longer needing to be understood by everyone. You stop defending every move. You stop looking around for validation. You stop measuring your worth by how people react. You simply live. You live in alignment. You live in peace. You live without guilt. And here's what happens when you stop asking for approval. You start attracting people who like you for who you really are. Not who you pretended to be. Not who they wanted you to be. But you, the real you. The one who speaks directly. The one who stands for something. The one who doesn't flinch in the face of disapproval. You also begin to trust yourself more. You stop hesitating. You stop delaying decisions out of fear. You start listening to your instincts. You give yourself permission to lead your own life without asking if it's okay. That confidence doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from finally stopping the performance. And you learn that it's okay to change your mind. That being yourself doesn't mean staying the same forever. It means allowing your thoughts to evolve, your dreams to shift, your voice to grow stronger. As long as you're true to what matters to you, you're on the right path. Even if no one else sees it yet. This isn't about disrespecting others. It's about refusing to disrespect yourself. It's about choosing a life that feels real over a life that looks perfect. It's about getting to the end of your day and feeling peace because you didn't betray your own values to fit into someone else's frame. You can't fully love yourself if you're constantly editing your truth. You can't fully respect yourself if you're living for acceptance. And you can't build a strong foundation on shaky ground. Approval is shaky ground. It changes with people's moods, with their insecurities, with their expectations. But truth, that stays. That holds. That gives you something to stand on when everything else feels unstable. Being yourself is a daily decision, not a one-time event. It's choosing to speak honestly in small moments. It's choosing not to follow the crowd when it goes against your values. It's choosing to walk your own path, even when it's quieter, even when it takes longer. But in that space you find peace. You find strength. You find something deeper than approval. You find freedom. So if you've been waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to be yourself, stop waiting. No one else has that authority. Only you do. And the moment you give yourself that permission, everything starts to shift. Your energy returns. Your confidence rises. Your relationships become more real. Your path becomes more clear. Because now you're not living for applause. You're not adjusting for comfort. You're not molding yourself for the crowd. You're simply living as you are. And that is more than enough. That is power. That is the life you were meant to live. Fully. Honestly. Without asking. Without explaining. Without fear. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you is ready to change. Not because you're broken, but because you finally believe you're worth more than hiding, more than settling, more than pretending to be okay when you're not. Loving yourself when you feel worthy isn't about ego. It's about truth. It's about waking up every day and choosing yourself not to impress anyone, but to respect the person you fought to become. So here's the next step. Stop waiting for perfect timing and start doing what actually honors you. Speak up, slow down, set boundaries, let go of what hurts, choose what gives you peace. And remember this: when you treat yourself like you matter, the world starts to follow your lead. If this spoke to you, come back tomorrow. Watch it again next week. Keep growing with it. You've only just started, and the best of you is still ahead.